Hello and welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Thornton Wilder's The Emporium, completed by Kirk Lynn and directed by Rob Melrose, currently playing at Classic Stage Company Off-Broadway right here in New York City. But before I get into it, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me get press tickets to shows like this one. And it got me back into Classic Stage Company, which I haven't visited in a while. So if you enjoy these reviews, show some love, click the like, comment, and notification bell so you know when something new comes out. Watch the whole thing and leave a comment below. Okay, let's talk about the play. What did I know going into this? Well, I was thrilled to get back to Classic Stage Company. They only produce about 3 shows a season, and this one is the finale of their 2025-2026 run. The first show they did was Baker's Wife, which sold out and it was extended, but I just couldn't get a ticket to it. The second was Marcel and the Train, which got terrific notices, and I wanted to see it, but unfortunately, I was someplace warm when it was playing in the winter, so I missed it. So I'm very happy to be closing out their season with The Emporium. Now, for those of you who have watched my reviews in the past, you may know that I've covered some of Thornton Wilder territory before. I reviewed Our Town when it was on Broadway, a Pulitzer Prize winning play, and also The Skin of Our Teeth I saw at Lincoln Center. I also saw the musical adaptation of it called Seat of Our Pants at the Public, another based on the Pulitzer Prize winning play. And so I've seen Wilder over the years. Now, I'm leaving The Matchmaker out of this because that was an adaptation of a German play, but his original works, the ones that are truly his voice, feel to me like they were absolutely groundbreaking in their time. But the problem is we now have so much theater that isn't traditional, that breaks the fourth wall, that is satirical, that's avant-garde, that's unusual, that pokes the bear, that treats the audience in a different way. And his stuff can feel a little quaint to me now. And here's the truth. Our Town bores me. The Skin of Our Teeth confuses me. And I prefer plays where actors can work in a truthful world, something that audiences can relate to, where the behavior makes sense because the world makes sense. A 1940s suburban family living in the Ice Age with pet dinosaurs. Funny idea. A Midwestern town where nothing dramatic happens. Those aren't worlds I can fully invest in. I understand the craft, I understand the ideas. The pet dinosaur in the Ice Age is a phenomenal concept. It's very funny. It's just whether the metaphor can hold up for 3 hours. So going into The Emporium, I had real concerns. Now, I didn't know this play at all. It wasn't on my radar, and I braced myself for another Thornton Wilder experience that might leave me out in the cold, out in the Ice Age. So let's talk about the show's development and the history of it. Here's what's remarkable about The Emporium and what you learn right at the top of the show. This play has been more than 75 years in the making. Thornton Wilder began working on it decades ago. He was inspired by 2 different sources. On one side, Franz Kafka's novel The Castle, about a man called K who desperately tries to get a meeting at a castle but can never break through the layers of bureaucracy to get there. On the other side, the classical American rags to riches story, the Horatio Alger ideal of an orphan who comes to the big city and makes something of himself. Now, Wilder wanted to fuse those 2 ideas, and the result was a play about a young man trying to get a job at a mysterious mythical department store called The Emporium. The greatest store in the city where there's no job application, no interview process, no clear way in. And he gets there and discovers he simply cannot figure out how to become part of it, even though people clearly work there. Wilder worked on this play for decades, and it was actually announced for Broadway twice. Once in 1950 and again in 1952. The second announcement had Jed Harris set to direct with Montgomery Clift attached to star, and at another point the legendary Tallulah Bankhead was attached to the role that here is played by Candy Buckley, who plays lots of different roles in the show. Very comedic role. Now, those productions never happened. Wilder kept revising, kept tinkering, and ultimately he shelved the play, and he never wrote another play in the final 30 years of his life. What did The Emporium do to you, Thornton? So he put those pages in a box. That box went to Yale University's rare book and manuscript library, and there it sat until playwright Kirk Lynn found it. Now, Lynn had become obsessed with studying Wilder after seeing a remarkable production of Our Town directed by David Cromer. Was that the one I saw on Broadway? It wasn't that remarkable. I don't think it was. He read everything Wilder ever wrote, all the plays, all the novels, all the short plays, the letters, the journals, read it all. And in Wilder's journals, he found references to scenes from The Emporium and diary entries about reading drafts of it with friends. He realized that there was a whole unpublished play by Thornton Wilder sitting in an archive somewhere. And he had access to Yale's library through a lectureship and asked for the boxes. What he found there was more than 300 handwritten pages, 9 distinct scenes that had a full narrative arc but needed a finisher's hand to connect them. He described himself as a carpenter, joining, smoothing, spackling drywall. With permission from the Wilder estate, Lynn assembled the play, and the result had its world premiere at the Alley Theater in Houston in 2024. I love the Alley Theater. That's where I took classes as a child. And it was directed by Rob Melrose, and now it is arriving in New York for the very first time, also directed by Rob Melrose. One fascinating structural detail in all of Wilder's notes and outlines, he always included the notation prologue. One fascinating structural detail in all of Wilder's notes and outlines, he always included a prologue after intermission. He wanted a prologue to appear after the audience had seen Act 1, I don't know why he's calling it a prologue, and this is a typical Wilder idea, slightly absurd, defying convention, but he never actually wrote it, so that felt to Kirk Lynn as well. More on that in a moment. So, what is this play about? Well, The Emporium follows John, a young man who was raised in an orphanage, then on a farm, and he's run away many times, and now he's running towards something, the city, and specifically the Emporium, this vast, mythical department store that seems to contain everything a person could possibly want. He arrives full of hope, falls in love with a young woman named Laurencia who works at the Emporium, and tries everything he can think of to get hired. But the Emporium has no application process. There is no ladder to climb. It simply exists, and he cannot find a way in. Now, the play is structured around 9 scenes, each of which contains a goodbye. As Kirk Lynn puts it, every life has 9 big goodbyes in it. In each scene, someone says goodbye to someone else. It's a thread of loss and transition running through what is also a very theatrical piece. The show opens with what the company calls a preface, a prologue at the beginning, where prologues begin, where the audience learns how this play came to be, the discovery of the manuscripts, the history of Wilder's attempts to bring it to Broadway, who Thornton Wilder is, and why his work matters. It's a framing device, and I think a very smart one. Then at the end of Act 1, something happens that I have genuinely never seen before in a theater. Well, almost never. I'm reminded a little bit of The Mystery of Edwin Drood, where there are optional endings at the end of the play. So in the Emporium, at the end of Act 1, the cast gives the audience a choice. There is one scene that Wilder outlined but never wrote, a scene that, if performed, reveals what the Emporium actually is as a metaphor. The audience votes during intermission whether or not to hear that scene, and the majority vote wins. If you vote yes, Kirk Lynn's version of this prologue is performed at the top of Act 2. And if the majority votes no, you watch the whole play and figure out the metaphor for yourself. Now, the night I went, the audience voted hear the scene. And according to the box office staff, every performance, the audience votes in a majority for that scene. Now, I think partly this is because of the way actors framed the question. They really felt like they were leading us towards voting yes. Now, I actually voted no against hearing it just because my instinct was to just push through, but I'm actually glad the majority overruled me, because once the scene is performed and the metaphor is revealed, Act 2 becomes an entirely different and, I felt, far more rewarding experience. Something clicks and suddenly the play is speaking directly to you. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the metaphor is because that would be a spoiler. You got to go see it for yourself and find out. But I will say it's something that resonated with me personally in a very specific way. And I now genuinely want to hear from anyone who's seen this show on the off chance that they saw this show on a night where the audience voted against hearing the scene, because your Act 2 experience must be very different from mine. And I'm very curious what you made of the metaphor on your own. So let's talk positive and negative. Let's start with the positives. I love this theater. The space is very cool. Classic Stage Company, it's obvious a building that was transformed into theater. There's a coffee shop in the lobby where you can have a drink and chill before the show. Once you get into the theater space, there's a loft space above the stage that the actors perform on, and it has wonderful character with the brick and the wood. And for the production, this production, the stage is configured as a thrust with the audience on three sides, which could be a nightmare in the wrong hands, but Rob Melrose handles it so well that I never felt like someone's back was towards me for too long. Now the direction is clean, clever, and minimalist. There's a recurring prop that becomes something different in every scene, which I thought was really fun. And the play begins with large stacks of paper laid out on tables that serves as a visual reminder that we are watching a play assembled from manuscripts. The ensemble is very strong. Candy Buckley has the most character changes of anyone in the cast, and she is having an absolute ball with it. She makes you smile every time she appears as someone new. The other actors who also play broader, more comedic roles, and some of them play multiple roles as well, they're also playing them with the exactly right energy and having a great time. What I think is the most inspired decision, though, is the way Melrose differentiates the two leads from the rest of the company. Joe Tapper as John and Cassia Thompson as Laurencia play their roles with complete truthfulness and naturalism. They are grounded in a way that other characters are not, and this works brilliantly because John, as written, is just as confused how the Emporium works as we in the audience are. He is our surrogate. So you have two characters behaving realistically inside a world that is utterly absurdist. And that contrast is what makes the play accessible. It's Thornton Wilder having his cake and eating it too. And I think it's really smart direction. So negatives, not a lot. One small note, John is written as a very young man, practically a teenager, someone who's run away from the farm and is discovering the city for the first time. Now, Joe Tapper is a wonderful actor and gives a terrific performance, but he reads older than this role is really requiring. And Cassia Thompson looks exactly right for Laurencia's age, and the age gap between them is a little distracting for me. I just don't love it when an older actor, especially a male, in a romantic role with a younger actress, and we're supposed to read them as contemporaries. It's a minor thing, but it did tug at me a little bit. Also, and this is not a criticism of this production specifically, but a broader observation, I'm not always a fan of finishing someone else's unfinished work and presenting it to a paying audience. I'm thinking of The Mystery of Edwin Drood. I think of Sondheim's unfinished final musical, Here We Are. These productions can sometimes feel like they feel unfinished because they are. I also have a general preference for investing resources in new playwrights rather than in historical estates. But I do have to give credit to Kirk Lynn specifically because he is a living playwright completing this work, and so they are investing in a living writer. And his additions feel so seamlessly integrated that I often couldn't tell where Wilder ended and Lynn began, with the exception of these chunks of the preface and the prologue, and those it was clearly Lynn speaking to us. So, really good work. Was I bored? Yes and no. During Act 1, I was not bored exactly because I thought the direction and the acting was so good that I didn't get restless, but I kept thinking, this is Thornton Wilder. I don't understand the metaphor. I can feel myself starting to slide into the confusion and getting detached the way I often do with plays like The Skin of Our Teeth. Now, the writing has his same sense of humor, his same theatrical scaffolding, and his same refusal to let you settle into a comfortable reality. And I kept thinking, I'm going to start getting bored if we don't find a way into this. But Act 2, I wasn't bored because the metaphor was explained to me, and everything that had felt distant suddenly had weight and warmth. And the second act is genuinely moving in places. So my verdict is bored-ish in Act 1, but not at all in Act 2. And importantly, I don't think that's a flaw to be fixed. I think that is simply the nature of this particular play. And I'm willing to sit with some boredom as long as you make up for it eventually. Now, the preface, the audience vote in the prologue, is specifically designed to manage that experience and bring you out the other side. And I think it really works. So, was I confused? Well, it's the same answer as was I bored. During Act 1, yes, it's Thornton Wilder. There's a metaphor. I can't understand it, and I can't quite grasp what's going on, and things don't exist in a world that operates by rules I understand. That's deliberate. That's his whole thing. But I will say the confusion is more tolerable here than in some of his longer works, because it's shorter and because the direction keeps things moving, and John's perspective, I think this is important, John's perspective keeps you anchored. John is as confused as we, the audience, are about the Emporium. So we have a character with whom we can relate, and that makes all the difference in the world. So during Act 2, not confused at all. The scene performed at intermission does exactly what it's meant to do, and once you know what the Emporium represents, the rest of the play falls into place in a deeply satisfying way. As someone in the play says, once you know, you can't unknow it. So it is a choice not to be taken lightly. So there you have it. What a genuinely nice afternoon in the theater. I came in with my usual Thornton Wilder defenses up, and I came out pleasantly surprised. Kirk Lynn has done exceptional work here, not just in the practical task of assembling the manuscripts, but in the artistry of the framing, the preface, the end of Act 1 vote, the Act 2 prologue. These are not just dramaturgical solutions to a practical problem. They're actually inspired theatrical choices that turn the incompleteness of the play into one of its most interesting features. Ah! So hats off to Classic Stage Company as well. Their definition of classic is clearly very loose. Jill Rafson, their producing artistic director, acknowledges as much in the, we'll call it a program, but I appreciate a theater that reaches something genuinely ambitious and unusual, and I'm glad that they understood that as small as this program is, this note was important to read, and I was happy that it was there. So if you're a Thornton Wilder fan, this is absolutely essential viewing. It is a peek inside the mind of one of America's greatest dramatists, a play he worked on for decades and never finished. I really wonder why. They don't tell us, maybe they don't know. Is it not in his diary? Anyhow, his voice, his humor, his themes, his theatrical instincts, it's all here. So this is a gift to Wilder fans. Now, if you're not a Thornton Wilder fan, and that has generally been my situation, I still recommend it. This production is proof that the right framing, the right direction, and the right cast can unlock even challenging material. I just wish, I need to see a production of Our Town that does this. This performance is 2 hours and 10 minutes, including intermission. It's much more manageable than Our Town or Skin of Our Teeth, and I think that the shorter running time really helps. The one caveat, if you are exclusively drawn to contemporary realistic works and have no patience for older theatrical styles, this may not be your bag. But if you enjoy good acting, smart direction, and a script with genuine ideas behind it, go check out The Emporium. It runs at Classical Stage Company through June 7th. And if you see it on a night when the audience votes not to reveal the metaphor, please comment below. I want to know how you experienced Act 2 and what you thought the metaphor was. Because once you know, you can't unknow it. I also think the show would really appeal to people in the industry, actors, writers, performers, etc. So, actors are performers. So, where did I sit? I got complimentary tickets from Classic Stage Company. Thank you for having me. I was so happy to be back in this space. My seat was near the back of the house, almost the second to last row, but in this theater, that does not matter. The space has been configured as a thrust stage with audience on 3 sides, and it's very intimate. Combined with Rob Melrose's attentive direction, he is very aware of sightlines. I never felt disconnected from the action. I strongly recommend this production, regardless of where you end up sitting or how you feel about Thornton Wilder. So where do you get your cheap tickets? $40 in-person rush. Show up at the box office the day of the performance. I assume it opens at 10 a.m., but check that. There's $40 for people under 40. Use promo code CLASSIC40 if you're under 40 years old. And if you are a student or you know a student, get them to buy you a $30 ticket, which are available in person at the box office on the day of the show. All right. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Bored and Confused. I hope you have enjoyed this review. I'm not quite sure what the next show will be. I have a show in a week, but I'm going to try to squeeze something in before that. So thanks for watching. I will see you at the next one. Bye for now.
Don't wanna drift away, wanna stay inside the play. Keep me engaged, keep me amused with what's in front of me. 'Cause I don't wanna be bored and confused.